What's up, you guys? We are doing some porting on a Gen 5 LT1 set of cylinder heads. Now, this is going to be an economy port job. This is not a full port job. This is for you guys that want to try to get your hands a little dirty at home. I'm going to give you some really basic tips and tricks to be able to port your own cylinder heads and improve it from an NA, boosted, whatever that you want to do. We're going to be able to bring out some horsepower. So, let me show you what's going on. So we got the cylinder heads completely torn apart. We are down to that point. Now, what I'm doing over here for valves is this is MEK. This is, if you guys don't know what MEK is, this is a step above what lacquer thinner would be. As you can see, I just got the valve soaking, and what I'm doing is, this is a crucial tip here. We do not want to mess with the valve job. You screw this up, you screw up your valve job, you might as well take your heads in and have a valve job done. So, stay away from the valve job. So, what is the valve job? Okay, you see the shiny ring around this edge? Okay, that is your valve job. So when we're grinding, we stay away from that, okay? Now, I'll show you that when we get into porting. Now, on cleaning up these valves, these are what the valves look like right now, sitting in the head, but this is what came out of the head. There's your intake. There's your exhaust. That's what we got now. That's your intake. That's your exhaust. And there's your before. So, needless to say, we got a lot of the carbon off, a lot of that buildup off, stuff like that. What did I do? I soaked them in MEK. This is probably about an hour's worth of a bath. Now, what it does is it gets this to kind of break up. Now, I'm doing two different things here. I have over there, I have a wire brush on a stand-up grinder. That is a fine wire brush. That is not for doing hard abrasive metals. We do a lot of copper here, so that is for a softer metal. Now, the thing is, I am not touching, you see that shiny? I am not touching the valve job. I'm doing that surface, and then I'm taking it off of the stem and a little bit on this tulip, but I am not going into here. I stop probably about where my finger is, then I use a hand brush, and then I let them soak again, and then I finish up with that. So, comparing apples to apples here, that's your before, that's your after. All cleaned up, ready to rock and roll. They are good enough for porting. What did I use? I used Mother's wheel and tire cleaner. Why? Because this works. It's not abrasive to aluminum. It's specifically designed to take off like brake carbon, brake dust, things like that. So it's going to work very well on here. Now, you could use this instead of using the wire brush and MEK and all that on your valves if you want to. If you don't have that stuff, just, I would say, buy two spray bottles of it. I have in total probably 4 hours of cleaning the heads, cleaning the valves, all that. Again, these cylinder heads had over 200,000 miles, 250. They were caked. I mean, caked in this crap. So, it takes a little time. You know, I used Scotch-Brite. I used a copper fine wire brush so it wouldn't really screw up the aluminum and all that. Plus, going over the valve job, I don't want to screw the valve job up. So now, at that point, they're nice and clean. Are they spotless? No, they're not spotless. But they're good enough to be able to port. So, just make sure you have a mask on, which you should. But make sure you have a mask on, and we're going to be able to do our porting. Now, economy port job. What are we going to be focusing on? We're going to be focusing on combustion chamber, which is huge for your low lift areas. Now, we already have a strike going against ourselves here. What do I mean by that? Your low lift areas, let's say, 2, 3, and 400 lift, valve job. If you have a good quality valve job, it will make or break your port. No matter what. You could have the world's greatest CNC port job and all that. If you have a crappy valve job, you're not going to get that low end range. So, we have a strike going against us that we're using factory valve job. But, combustion chamber modifications that I'm going to show you guys are going to be beneficial for that low lift number. Why do I care so much on it? We're going to be working on a camshaft that's 600 and less lift. Where I care in that area is honestly going to be like 200, 300, maybe even 400 lift. That's where the power has to happen. That's where we really need this to shine. So we're going to work on combustion chambers. We're going to do a little bit of blending from the throat to the bowl. I'll show you once we're over in the corner of what we're going to do. Okay, now what you're going to do is you can just use a black Sharpie, blue Sharpie, whatever, and then we're just going to do a 90-degree on the exhaust, and then we are going to find a shape that will give you the roundedness that we need for the combustion chamber. What I used was one of these. Find something that still mocks the combustion chamber. What do I mean? This inner combustion chamber. This is what we are going to be porting. Now, I am not dropping this all the way down. You'll see what I mean by we're going to be blending this in. This distance from here to here is over 1/4 of an inch. It's about 300 thousandths. You can see this is where the old head gasket was. So we're plenty of clearance to the piston, all that stuff, we're fine. But that's the modification we're going to do on combustion chamber. And on exhaust is this back edge. All I did was a right angle to the farthest point here, to the farthest point here. That's bringing me into here. Now, our cutting wheel is going to give us our shape. I'll show you more of that once we start porting, but this is going to be the area. This is that left side bank. Okay, guys, we're ready to start porting. I'm going to get you through a couple of things. I put the valves in the cylinder head. They're just laying in there. They're nothing big. This is to protect you from actually running into your valve job and screwing things up. Do your absolute best not even to touch the valve. This is for last minute resort protection. I would rather have 2 crap junk valves than doing this. But if you have nothing else, this is just to protect you. But do your best, you guys. Don't touch these. So, if you've never done it, I'm going to set you up with 2 basic bits. A cone bit, which is this guy. This is more of what I would consider like a cast iron bit. It has a lot more teeth to it. And then you have these guys that are more designed for chopping through aluminum. You're not going to use these. If you've never done this before, I don't want you using these because they're so aggressive that you would probably end up ripping through the head, and cast heads are a softer aluminum than an aftermarket like a Brodix or something like that, to where you need to use that. If you're not used to porting heads, stick with one of these guys, one of those guys, where this is what I consider a cast iron bit. It just has more teeth. It's your standard burr bit. Run a 6-inch long egg. These are great. This is normally what I would use. And then if you want a cone, you can either get a 6-inch long or you can get these 3-inch long guys. You can get a 3-inch, perfectly fine. For just reaching inside the ports, you want at least one 6-inch. Now, if those are the only 2 that you have, you can do this. So now, we're pretty much ready to port. Now, you guys will see me using the more aggressive bits, but again, if you haven't done this before, I don't want you to use them. Use the cast iron bits, okay?
Push harder, give it all. Rise every time you fall. Walls are meant to be destroyed. Pure strength is your only void. Run wild, never fade. Feel the burn under the dark shade. Strength in every stride. Alive, fighting to survive.
All right, you guys, here is the finished product. Now, this is still the cast iron burr fit finish, all right? If you guys want to go through and polish them out with 120, 200 grit, all that stuff, hey, knock yourself out. I wanted to show you what it looks like with the cast iron bit finish. Now, is this gonna, oh my gosh, it's still kind of rough. Is that gonna hurt the cylinder head? Not really. For what we're doing, this is gonna be all right. For you guys out there that are still trying to do this in a very economy version. Now, here's our combustion chambers. Notice the big difference that we got rid of in here. Now, one big thing, that's looking at the spark plug. I drew this back like a cone. We do not want to go straight down. If you go straight down, you start getting into these threads, you're going to rip this right out, that spark plug. You're just going to have problems with the plug. You could literally like crack the aluminum and all that. So we want to make sure that we keep it like coming out of the plug. Let's say this is coming out of the plug. We wouldn't want to come straight down. We still want to have it come out at an angle, all right? So this is going to kind of root itself into where the threads aren't going to get ripped out. So that is still very, very important. That's why I'm showing you this top view, is see how it kind of cones itself out. That's what I ended up doing. Now, also, in this area here, keeping your valves in it, you're not going to be able to get this very, very tight area in here. You're going to get a good chunk of it, but there's, no, you can't really feel it anymore. But you're not going to be able to get right into it, okay? Now, with this, what I did was I drew this back flat. So I'm trying to draw this back a little bit flatter and then come into my shape. Then I'm trying to come in and draw this up. So I actually made this go down a little bit, a little flatter, and then brought it up. Same thing here. I brought it down a little bit and flatter, and then I, just smoothed it out up around the edges. That's all I did. So what I'm doing is, instead of it being, say, shaped like this coming off the valve, it's now shaped like this coming off the valve. All right? So we're cupping this more. That right there is going to help that valve open up and unshroud this combustion chamber. I did it in the corners. I did it up here at the top. And I did it down here. Plus, where the spark plug itself, it came out way farther. It came out farther here. So what I did was I aimed it out here. I shredded some of this away. So this actually unshrouds it here. You're only going to be able to do so much. And then here was the same thing. I was probably to about right there. I took this and I drew it in and pulled it in towards the exhaust. So we unshrouded that area as well. Do not mess with this. You mess with this, you're gonna get into one portion of the valve or the other. Don't worry about this. All we're worrying about is this and up through here. I drew this back slightly compared to what it was before with stock. That is the modification to the combustion chamber. Now, bowls. Intake-wise, let me grab a light. Okay, intake-wise, why didn't I grind down the valve guide? Well, you're really not going to notice grinding that thing down like crazy. You're not going to get a whole hell of a lot out of it. What I did do, though, was there was a line or a step. Here, let me grab a pencil here. There was a step that went straight across here, and that probably stuck up about 60 thousandths. What I did was, inside here, I ground that down, and then I blended this back and forth, and I blended it. Now, this, you can see, was all the way to here. I knocked it down, and then I knocked this whole thing down, and I gave it a little bit of a vein. Not much, but I gave it a little bit of a vein. So I gave myself more bowl, and then blended this section in, here to here, okay? Now, all it was right here, there was a lip that you could feel with your fingernail. I blended that in, and then the same amount of material that I took out of here, I just followed that down, and then as I made it to even with the guide, I just blended it out. So I was basically like, if you want to say, I was full throttle and I started letting off in here. So it blends it back to the stock port. Now, this section in here, so from your edge here, your edge here, where your actual throat would start, I'm down probably about an inch to about an inch and a quarter. That's by the time I blend it. So from here probably to about 3/4 of an inch is focus, and then it's blending it back out. Same thing here. All I did was I just went from the throat, which like I said, I'm at 91%, and then by the time I'm in the bowl here, I'm already at 100%, so I don't want to increase the bowl that much more. This is not a full port job, so I'm trying to keep the low-end lift that I can get, low-end lift flow that I can get off this thing. So that's it. It was just blending this portion of it in. There was more focus in here to open the bowl up behind the valve guide. That was the main focus, okay? You will open this up with that blending that I'm telling you about, but that was my main focus there. Now, exhaust, I did it slightly. Let me move this over here. I'll pick this up so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Like I said, I'm sorry, you guys. I'm kind of one-handed here. Now, valve guide in there, I didn't mess with because it's really not that bad. I ended up doing the same thing here. Whoops, sorry. I ended up doing the same thing here where we are at 91%. Even then, this is still around 89.5, almost 90%. So just the blending is going to get you into that area of about 91%. Now, I brought this down. Let me see if I can slip the pencil in here. Originally, this portion of the guide was to about here, all right? Was to about there. I took it and I drew it up, and then I just blended it in. Same thing. I gave it a little bit of a vein, and I blended it in. Just this section. I didn't go past the guide itself here. So pretty much this is my stopping point, is like the tip of the guide right here. That's it. All my focus is in here. So we're just working on blending in the bowls. So that's it for there. That's literally what we did port-wise. Now, on the exhaust, if you remember, we ended up making our straight edge. Oh, here, let me get down here. Move the light back over, and we're going to pick that one because that's the best one for light. Now, you can see where I still kept the shape. I still wanted to keep this rounded. I didn't want to just go squared off. So I used the porting bit to give me my shape here, and then I just blended it in. You can still see my straight line right there to right there. You can still see part of it. What I did was, when I started coming to where my straight edge was here and I could tell that this was going to be my shape, I stopped, and then I just blended this in, and then I made this flat to the floor. That's it. That's literally, that's all I ended up doing. But this entire section, let me move the pencil to the other hand. This entire section right here, where the pencil is, I blended that whole corner that we dropped down. I blended it all the way down into the short turn and into the valve. Now we turn this thing around and we look up that valve. Oh, now you actually unshroud a lot of that valve, and pretty much if you use line of sight, where this was the area here that was just, it was probably pulled up to where the tip of my pencil is. You know, we were into this area here, so all of this was drawn down. So that was the improvement that we made on the exhaust. It's not much, but it makes a big difference, you guys. And on the intake inside, we ended up doing, oh, I gotta flip this thing around, is this little booger right here. This guy right here, this is what I was telling you about. This whole section here that I'm trying to let the pencil go through, you couldn't stick the pencil through. I actually used the porting bit, ended up coming down here, grinding through, and I just ran the bit until I could make its way through past the valve guide. When I could do that, that told me how much I had to knock off of this. And as you could tell, I just blended this in, but I didn't take all of this away because this is your boss for this. Okay, so that is where your threads are going through to hold up your rocker stand. We don't want to blend this completely flat and get rid of this whole guy. We want to keep this, all right? So all we're doing is, you can see, we blend the shape. When you have your heads apart, you will see the difference in this. I ended up setting these up with some C-clamps on there. Table's totally flat, cleaned, make sure that the cylinder head's been completely cleaned out, clean your ports, everything right there to make sure that you have no debris inside there that could possibly get in the motor. Now again, I C-clamp this down because this is going to want to shift on you as you're actually putting everything together. The kit comes with new seals, valves are in, all that stuff's done. Now, first things first, what we're going to need to do, now this is from Texas Speed, and they make them for LS1, LS2, these LT ones. Get this on first. And all I'm doing is I'm literally just finger tightening this thing down. Now, once we get it set, you can kick this thing open, bloop, and then we're going to grab ourselves one of these nice polished valve springs. Yes, they're quite lovely. And then we grab, oh, let's grab our titanium retainers. There we go. Throw a titanium retainer in there. Like I said before, keep all your locks because you're going to be reusing these locks. Now, we're going to set our tool up, our 3/8 drive. You're going to want an extension on it because you're going to have to crank on this thing a little bit. So I put an extension on this one. I already got the other cylinder head done. And this is how we're going to set it up. Okay, so we're locked in. This bad boy in there. we go. Now, when you bring this down, you're going to notice that the spring on the retainer, once you're putting this in, you're looking down this, that the valve itself, it might be like way down here or way up here. You're going to have to take the spring and kind of center it as you're bringing it down, all right? So, that being said, so we center this thing to make sure your gap is even all the way around, because that will be crucial when you're trying to put in your lock. Now, lock-wise, I'm going like 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and I'll just get the lock to drop in on that side. Get it to drop in on that side. Little booger. Trying to get it to drop in on that side. There we go. You're fighting me, aren't you? There we go. And there's our first one. Now, should I show you one that, oh, it didn't take me any effort and it was just, man, you made that look easy? No. This is some of the BS that you guys are going to have to go through. But she's on. She's ready to rock and roll. So now we'll take this off and we'll do the rest of them. Once you are done, you're going to grab yourself a big socket, the same way that we took them apart. You're going to put it over it. You're going to give it a nice tag with the hammer. I got it back here. So let's say I'm going to take this one off and I'm going to set it up. I'll do this after I get every single one on. I'm just giving you the example. So pull this off. What we're doing is we're setting the locks into the retainer. Putting this on, and I'm not walloping the hell out of it, just giving it a nice little hit, and then that sets the locks into the retainer. Now again, go through them all first. Go through, whack, 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 whack. You're all said and done. And then, once you're done, that's what you end up with. So that cylinder head is all done. So I'm going to finish up on that. I hope you guys liked this. I apologize if it was a little too long, but there's a lot of information to give you guys. Please hit me down in the comments if you guys enjoyed this, if you liked it, if it was helpful, and if you guys like the tech stuff. I ended up doing a cam degree one, the spark plug, turning that into your top dead center maker, doing a little bit of cylinder head porting, and I figured on some Gen 5 stuff. You guys would really dig it because it's more relevant than doing a set of big block Chevy heads or small block Chevy heads. Plus, I've never done a set of these Gen 5 LT1 heads. It's always been small block Ford, big block Ford, you know, the standard old-fashioned stuff is mainly where all my porting's been. So it was fun to do something kind of new. So anyways, you guys, I'm going to finish up on these, get out of this place, go get some dinner with the wife. Please share, like, subscribe. Like always, I appreciate you guys so much. Till we meet again, my friends.